What's up? Welcome to another episode of PsycKicks. My name is Liv, and this is the podcast where we talk about all things metaphysical, spiritual, paranormal, and in between. This week, we are having listeners' stories, which I'm excited about because I haven't done this in a while. I've been so focused on trying to just talk about the things that have been popping up into my head and other little research blurbs here that I forgot that everyone likes listener stories. So when I was trying to figure out a new topic to talk about this week and research and whatever, I was like, wait, we could just talk about listener stories. So that is what we're doing today. If you're new to the podcast, welcome. I'm glad you're here. I'm a psychic medium, which means that, it doesn't really mean a lot, honestly. Let's be real. It means that I talk to dead people, alive animals. That's kind of my brand of mediumship, as well as plants and houses. I'm very good at channeling the energy of the world around us or things that have been in this physical world-ish type of thing. So everyone I'm learning has their own sort of brand of mediumship, whether that be being more attuned to the Fey realm or to spirit guides or deities, whatever. Everyone has a different way of how they channel energy and the sort of energies that they channel. So that's just a little bit about me if you're new here. And we're going to be talking about listener stories or reading listener stories that lovely listeners like yourself have sent in. And this week, there is no theme. I just picked a wide array of ones that I think touched on a lot of different little topics. So it's going to be more of a menagerie, which seems to be one of my favorite words to use, of listener stories. And I'm excited. I think we have 4, if not 5, for you all today. But before we get into the listener stories, let me give you a little life update. It's not long. If you want to skip past it, there will be a timestamp down below in the show notes if you don't want to listen to my little anecdote. It has to do with last week's podcast and the podcast before that, and it's a little funny. But if you don't want to listen to it because this is your first podcast and you just want to listen to the listeners' spoopy stories, then, clicky doodle onto the first story. But without further ado, this is my life update. All right, so my friends, when it comes to friends, the type of friend that I am is we will talk maybe all of my closest friends, we don't talk a lot, but when we do, we make time to get together and then we all catch up. And that could be months, weeks, years apart from one another. And a lot of my friends actually live across the country now or in different areas. So sometimes we'll text or talk on the phone a little bit here and there. But I am not the person that texts and talks to their friends every day 24/7 in a chat at all points in times throughout the week or the day at all. It's more I love you, you know that I love you, and we're going to get together when we need to be present, and then we're just going to pretend we don't even know each other for a long extent of time because we're just doing life, and then we'll come back together again. It's one of those yo-yo taffy sort of relationships. We really get spread apart, but we're going to come back together and it's no big deal. Very low maintenance relationships. So one of my longest standing friends, Abby, we got together over the weekend and I was filling her in on just all the stuff that's been going on. She still works at the place that I used to work at because I was able to help her get a job there, and it's been fabulous for her. She basically runs a department now, and I'm just super excited for her. So she's filling me in on all of my old work buddies and how they're doing and stuff like that. And I'm talking to her about Oaks milestones and the stuff that we're doing at home. And I was telling her about my just debacle of trying to understand what astral projection was, and that I had my spiritual faux pas of not knowing what it was while trying to research it and talking about the Mandela effect and things like that. And I looked at her square in the face and I was like, Abby, can you tell me what you think astral projection is? And I'm sitting there thinking that I'm going to get another non-concrete answer, some sort of thing that cause she's not necessarily, Abby's a spiritual person. She loves fictional books. She's the person that I talk about how the only ounce of organized religion that I was ever a part of was when I would go to Lutheran church with Abby when we were growing up because I would sleep over her house. So that's her extent of whatever's. But fun fact about Abby is that she went to school for anthropology, which is an interesting thing in and of itself. But I'm sitting here like, I'm the psychic medium. I know all of these things. I'm a spiritualist, yada, yada, yada. And I'm like really, really freaking proud of the month and a half of research that I've done, going on websites, listening to people's YouTube videos, listening to podcasts, talking to other people, and then having it just like completely backfire in my face, and then having like a small group of people reach out and be like, listen, this is what astral projection really is. And this is the resource that you should be using, because for whatever reason, the internet has led you to just like not the places to go. So I'm thinking like, I got this on her. She's going to tell me like every other answer that every other person has told me that's like not straightforward, very like fluid and whatever, and like give it her best shot. I shit you not, guys. She looks me square in the face and she goes, isn't it just your consciousness being used in a different way, separate from your body? And I was like, I literally almost spit out my coffee that she brought me. I was like, are you physically kidding me right now? Did you just actually spit that out in the most nonchalant, haphazard, like it's common knowledge thing in my face right now, after a month and a half of turmoil that I've been just enduring trying to figure out this answer? And she's like, well, you obviously were looking for the answer in the wrong places. Maybe you should have went and asked an anthropologist or like anthropology Reddit. And I was like, everything's fine. She's like, you could have just asked me. And I was like, I didn't think about it because I'm a low maintenance friend, guys. I don't talk to my friends for a month. And then when I do, I get a knowledge bomb dropped on me like it was just some little like pocket change. She's just like, here, you want a quarter? Here's my understanding of astral projection because I went to anthropology school. So that was, that's my life update. A month and a half of just like so much frustration and soul searching to figure out how I can comprehend astral projection, thinking that like, I don't know, it'll come to me because I'm a psychic medium and all this other stuff. And that's just the spiritual spanking that I need in this like pagely sage sort of era that I'm in from my dearest friend, Abby. And before you guys are like, how does Abby feel about you talking about this in the podcast? I already told her that I was 100% gonna smack talk her in this podcast, and she knows about it. So she knows that I'm spitting fire at her. And maybe if we have spiritual questions, we should all just go on to anthropology, whatever, forums and figure it out. Or we'll just ask Abby. If you guys want, do you have any spiritual questions? Abby's been on the podcast before. Maybe we'll do another podcast where she comes in and she and I can do a Q&A where you guys ask her, send in like in the comments below. If you're listening on the PsycKicks Extras YouTube channel, type your comments down below. Or you can shoot me an email at metapsychics@gmail.com or oliviathemedium@gmail.com. Whatever's easiest for you. All of those things are down in the description below or in the show notes. And we could do a podcast where we ask Abby spiritual questions and her anthropology brain gives us the answers. Because like, I was just flabbergasted, just outrageously flabbergasted that she answered that question for me so eloquently and in such just definitive, easy detail. And it just, she's like, well, maybe you should have just taken a course on shamanism. And I was like, did you take a course on shamanism in college? And she's like, well, of course. And I was like, I think I need to go back to school for anthropology in order to understand spiritualism and be a better psychic medium. And now I just have like do like going on in my head. So that's my my life update. I got spiritually spanked by my best friend Abby, who answered this, what is astral projection, in just the most straightforward way, because she just knew. She's like, how did you not know that? And I was like, I've been tumultuously chasing after this answer for a month and a half, and you just spit it out. So say la vie, you know, it's all a learning thing. And I'm excited to be able to at least share this with you guys. Cause I laughed like like a Muppet when she said that. I scared Oak. He was playing happily on the floor while we were sitting on the couch enjoying coffee and talking, and he like turned around while I laughed just so ridiculously, because I was like, I just don't understand how this happened right now. But thank you to everyone who did reach out to help me, even though it wasn't Abby until the very last minute. But either way, I am excited about just how this learning journey has gone, and I don't know. Anyways, thanks for listening to my life update. Let's move on to the listener stories. So, the first story is titled Bad Vibes by Jenn D. And Jen says, I absolutely love your content and I have a story for you. This is something that I can't stop replaying in my mind since the day it happened. So I live in East London and my friend had called me to go to work to drop some equipment off to him, and he was in Aldgate, so about 45 minutes away by bus. Anyway, I convinced my friend to come with me to drop the equipment off to my friend AJ. As my friend and I got off the bus, I had an uneasy feeling, completely anxious, almost sick to my stomach. Bear in mind, the bus had not even moved yet. We were sitting at the back of the bus, and my back was towards the driver, so I couldn't see anything apart from my friend who was facing me. Anyways, this man sat down at the back near us, and he was facing me. The feeling he gave me was unsettling. I could sense something strange about this man. I looked at him, and the smile I received from him in return was inhuman, almost like he was possessed. My body was sweating, yet I was so cold. I was afraid, but my instinct was to protect my friend. My friend realized that I was freaking out in silence. So using her phone, she messaged me to see if I was okay, but I couldn't stop looking at him. I replied saying that he was not a person, and she asked me, "What do you mean?" So I said to her, "Let's go and sit somewhere else." As I was explaining to her via text while getting up to change seats, I noticed her demeanor changed beside me too. I looked back to see in the reflection of the window the face of the man smiling inhumanely back at us. He was following us. I was holding my friend's hand because for some reason I felt that I had the power to protect her, passing my energy onto hers. I always knew that a part of me has some sort of ability, but I still don't understand anything about it. Again, we moved to a different seat to feel more at ease. I can't even explain how I felt, but it was terrifying. 10 minutes later, the man moved to trail us again. He decided to stand next to my seat, and I could sense his eyes on me, and at that moment, I felt like I created a bubble of protective energy between us and him. Finally, as we got off the bus, he got off too. My friend wanted to go straight to AJ, but I said to her, "No, sit down on the step and wait." The man wouldn't move from the corner either, still looking at us, laughing in this creepy way. I was repulsed in my head. I was praying to God and demanding that this thing posing as a man get away from me. A few minutes later, he left, and I felt at ease again. I felt that my anxiety had left my body, and so we could continue our journey. This happened a year ago and a bit. To this day, I can't stop thinking about it. I get on this bus to go to work, and I have never seen this man since. I'm sorry if this doesn't make any sense, but it's hard to explain something in so much detail in just a message. If you can explain what happened, whether it was testing me or just paranoia, I need some peace of mind, and I can't seem to make sense of it. To me, it was so surreal. Hope to hear from you, and thank you for your time to read this. Much love, Jen. All right, Jen, let's break it down. First of all, I'm glad you're safe. That person does not seem like they were a safe individual at all. But let's talk about you and your protective energy first, because you say that you always have felt that you have had some sort of ability but don't understand anything about it. Now, from my perspective, what you were doing, it's kind of like, I would explain it in a more simplified term of like Reiki, perhaps, just because I understand Reiki as you using your energy or the energy of something else, maybe not the energy of something else, but channeling your energy in order to protect or heal or fortify the energy of another. This is something that is related to clairsentience, I would have to say. So clairsentience, if you're new to the podcast and don't know, is the psychic ability of clear feelings or sensations, hence clairsentience, clear sensations or feelings. It's derived from French. So clairsentience can be not just physical feelings, but it can also be emotions and just therefore energy in a sense. So what you were doing was you were using your own protective energy to put around you and your friend to sort of ward off or protect yourself from the energy of this very creepy man. So good for you. I hope that you listened to this and I was able to help you understand that clairsentience is something that you have as a psychic ability. And you can do with that whatever you will. You could be like, oh yeah, clairsentience. But, we've learned by now, and if you're new to the podcast and you don't know, everyone has psychic abilities. They are unique and individualistic to you, and they reflect your 5 physical senses, but in psychic ways. So if you're very, very emotional or perceptive to the emotions of others around you, a lot of people are like, I'm an empath. But that's just, in my opinion, a more simplified way to say that you are clairsentient. But clairsentience is not just emotions, it's also physical feelings as well. So you were just putting your energy around your friend and yourself in order to protect you and ward off the energy of others. Honestly, a lot of people ask me how they protect themselves, or a lot of people ask me how I protect myself if I am in, like, say, a haunted location, or just talking to souls in general that may or may not be the nicest. I don't know. When I do private readings with people, I'm just talking to the souls of their past loved ones. And very, 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 very rarely do I talk to souls that are not nice or that you could see as maybe souls of like aggressors or not nice people. That's usually not how my readings go. And that's just, I think, the nature of how my readings are in the first place. Like if someone is mean or there's someone that was not nice to you, I don't hold space for that soul. So unless talking to them is going to bring you peace and clarity and a sense of understanding and love, then they're not allowed to be in my presence. That's just how it works, because when in mediumship, our job is to bring peace and clarity, not argue and bicker or try to talk to someone who isn't nice. You know what I'm saying? And it goes both ways. So a lot of the times what I tell people is that I protect myself energetically, very much how Jenn was doing in her story. One of the more simple things that I do, which is kind of silly, is the way I interpret colors for energy is going to be different. And I tell people too, like, if you want to learn how to do Reiki, go find a Reiki master. But for me, I don't do Reiki professionally, nor have I ever been trained in Reiki. But I do perceive colors of energy associated to people and their feelings and their physical states. And the colors that I perceive give me an understanding of what emotion or feeling is associated with that energy. So for me, I really like the white light, which is very synonymous to what a lot of other people perceive, which is like the white light of God, the high vibrational healing, peace, love, that type of thing, energy. But my other favorite is pink. And for me, it's like this light pastel pink, and it is love, but in a very different way. It's like the unconditional love of protection and self-sacrifice. And the way that I kind of do this is when I see an animal that's trying to cross the road, and I have to obviously keep driving because you don't want to impede the flow of traffic or cause an accident or anything like that, I will see the animal and I will envision a pink little ball of energy around them, whether it be a squirrel, a bunny, a raccoon, a deer, whatever. And I will throw my energy out with like the thought of, please let them get across to the other side without someone hitting them that's like behind me or anything else. Just let them either go the other way and walk away from the road or get to the other side if they really, really need to. And I will put that yellow, and I use yellow too. I don't know why. Maybe because it has to do with like decision making and my interpretation of colors. Everyone's interpretation of colors, I think, is a little bit different. But for me, yellow, and then pink of like protection, like please help them get across the road or make a decision to be safe. And that is my little form of energy protection. So if I go into other places too, such as like investigations and things like that, I will envision different colors of energy around the people that are in the investigation or myself in order to protect my energy and my presence from anything that may not necessarily jive with it. And that is what Jenn is doing here in that story. And I think that's pretty cool. Now, Jenn, as far as it comes to this person, and you feel like they were like possessed in a sense. I don't know if they were possessed in a paranormal or metaphysical sense, is like what people think of like a negative entity, demon, whatever you want to call it, sort of residing over them. But I do think that there can be, when we talk about negative entities, quote unquote demons, what the internet calls them and other sources, I just like to say that things under the form of demons can be poltergeists, whatever. They're just lower vibrational entities. Because when we talk about souls, right, and heaven or spirit, a lot of people in the spiritual community be like, I'm raising my vibration. The reason they're saying they're raising their vibration is because the vibration of spirit, heaven, source, whatever, where human souls reside, is a higher vibration or frequency of energy. That is where souls reside, in a higher frequency of energy. If you think about it like gases, souls would exist at a very, very high energy frequency. And if you think about negative entities, things that go bump in the night, demons, poltergeists, whatever, they exist on a lower frequency. If you can think about that, you can think about them as like dry ice. You know, when you expose it to air and it makes that very low fog on the ground, that is going to be the energy of lower vibrational spirits. Now, when people say like, oh, you're just down in the dumps, or this person's really negative, I think it has to do with their energy and how the energy that they give off goes about them. So if this person really was possibly a perpetrator or wanting to be a perpetrator in any form, sense, or fashion, even just making you uncomfortable like that is not a nice thing. I feel like the energy associated with him, whether it be his own or that of energies that are attracted to him, i.e. negative entities, then that would attribute to his personality and the reason you felt like he may have been possessed or whatever. So not saying that he was possessed, I just think that people with bad vibes and bad intentions, that's the energy that they're set to, and that's the energy you're going to feel. So protecting your energy in that space, Jen, in the way that you did, is good. All right, moving on to the next story by Teak F. And Teak's story is titled A Ghost Through the First Brick, which I just think is a funny title, hence why I'm reading it. So, Teak says, this event happened to me about 20 years ago. I am now 32. But despite the distance of time, the event is as sharp in my head as ever. I grew up in a rural town in the Sierra Nevada mountains of Northern California, in a town of a few hundred, with the next largest city having a population of about 13,000 and being an hour away. The property was purchased by my family when I was very little, about 23 acres with 2 houses on the property. The main house was where we lived, while the second house ended up as storage. It was occupied before we purchased the property, but the occupant had died years prior, so we loaded it with our old furniture and such. As I grew up, I always felt uncomfortable around that house, the decaying building notwithstanding. But as I got older, that comfort grew distant, and on this day, it was wholly forgotten. When I had a friend over and we spent the day messing around, shooting BB guns and such before we decided to explore the storage house. We went through some of the boxes, walked up and down a very old spiral staircase, and generally made a ruckus. I didn't know what kicked off the event, but at some point, my friend and I decided that we needed to leave, and fast. We sprinted as quickly as we could out of the house, but as we opened the front door, we were both suddenly shoved out forcefully from behind. At that same moment, we heard an ear-splitting, shattering noise and watched as the window next to us blew out on the side of the house's patio, with a brick landing heavily among the glittering shards of glass. We scrambled up as quickly as possible and ran to the other house where my mom was. As we explained the situation to her, she examined the back of my jacket and noticed a handprint shape impressed on the back. This event has stuck in my head for a very long time, and I hope you find it interesting. Teak. Teak, it is interesting. Why did you, I don't know. Okay, so as a medium, when I read this story, immediately when you talk about the property, before you even talked about the separation of houses, there being 2, one for storage and one for living, there's this older man that I perceive. He has like a larger nose. I would say, I don't know if it's necessarily a Roman nose, but a nose. I mean, I have a big nose, so it's a bigger nose. And I feel like he would have like hazel or lighter colored eyes. His hair is straight and it's thinning on the top. I feel like he's probably in his late 60s, early 70s, but he's one of those older people that are just really good at getting around, and they look old, but they're strong, and he's thinner. His hair sort of touches the top of his ears and it's gray and straight, and then it comes down the back a little bit, but it's still short. And he looks like he would have been like a farmer or someone who maybe worked like a blue collar job, like in a factory or out in like the field on a farm maybe. And he's wearing pants that come up to his belly button. They're like grayish green slacks and some boots, or like brown leather loafers. I would say brown leather boots maybe, and just a shirt tucked into his waist. But he is just not about having kids on his property, like at all. Like he's okay with his house having things in it and being left alone and even it falling apart, but he does not want people in there, especially kids. I feel like he may not have had kids or lived alone for a large portion of his life. And he just gives me the feeling of whippersnappers, is what he'd call you, which is very much an old person thing. But I feel like that may have been caused by his explosive energy towards feeling that his space was being interrupted and his peace was being interrupted by two young kids shooting BB guns and touching things where they shouldn't be. He has a little bit of an accent too. I'm not sure what kind of accent. It's not Southern, but it's kind of like this Southern-ish Western accent that you'd get if you were over by like Nevada. That type of Western accent that you would kind of think about, not necessarily Texas, but more West. So anyways, he just was not very happy about you guys being in there as far as I can understand. So that's all. With the impression on the back of your jacket, I'm trying to figure out how that would happen. Maybe because it got like dusty. I mean, if you listen, feel free, Teak, to write in an email if it was like an imprint on like a puffy jacket or if it was just like an imprint because there was dust on your jacket. But definitely not happy that you and your friend were in there. And it makes sense too as to why you didn't have much fear when you went in there, because you and the family were leaving the house alone. So he's like, if you leave my neck of the woods alone, then I'll leave your neck of the woods alone. So anyways, that was a fabulous story. I appreciate it. I'm glad you're safe. And did you go back in there again? I wouldn't. I would not. I would like go back and maybe pick up the brick and be like, sorry, and then leave. Maybe leave like an old cup of coffee on the front porch, because I don't know, old guys like cups of coffee, right? I don't know. Anyways, okay, next story. This one I really just think is pretty and almost seems like something out of a fairy tale. So if that seems like your vibe, this one's for you. It was written by Valhri N, and the title of the story is Past Life as a Fae/Goddess. Valhri says, once I became in union with my twin flame, past life memories came involuntarily, through both dreams and waking visions. As a preface, I have always been sensitive to the paranormal, like many in the world today. Before we get into this past life memory recall, I want to note that this past life was a part of a self I rejected for many years, as it made me feel as if I had some grandiose image of myself, which actually plays a theme in this life. So let's just get into the past life. In this past life, I was born as a fairy into a fae kingdom. In this kingdom, my father wanted me in an arranged marriage. I denied this marriage, rebelling to the mortal lands where a human man fell in love with me. I chose him against my father's wishes and was condemned from the fae realm, never to return. Yes, condemned. I ended up marrying this human man, and we eventually had a child, a beautiful baby boy. The night after he was born, the baby was stolen from my arms, leaving blood all over my face, hair, clothing, and hands. I was framed, making it appear as though I had eaten my baby. Spoiler, my husband knew I was fae and framed it to look as if I had committed such a thing. The baby was not dead, however, and was sent into the woods where a man found him and raised him. During this time, I was to be chained outside the kingdom of this mortal man, to be shamed by everyone. I was forced to tell them from my shackles, this is my fate, for I ate my child. Eventually, as the child aged and the man that raised him began to realize who this child belonged to, together they rode to the kingdom and set me free. To show the people that the ruling king, my husband, was a fraud, I was set free and rode off with my son and my hero. My hero is my twin flame. We ended up living a beautiful life together as a family. The thing is, we moved a lot. Since I was Fae and came to find out my twin flame was a demigod, we attracted a lot of attention. People wanting to be healed, spiritual knowledge bestowed upon them, etc. But we didn't mind being of service to the community we were in. We strongly disliked being worshipped. Back in this time, people would start worshiping you as a god or goddess. We felt and still feel that the true worship should be given to the Creator, not the servants of the Creator. So to worship us or others was taking the faith away from creation as it is. Anytime we got too much attention, we left the territory and made a new life for ourselves with new names and identities. We did this all throughout the Celtic lands, eventually settling on a little island. The irony is, however, that all of this plays into this life. In this life, I am a barren woman with many fur babies, and my partner and I have moved from our landlocked home to a small island where we now happily live. Thanks for reading, Valhri. Just like, Valhri, I really enjoy reading your past life. I think it's interesting. And reading your past life story makes me think about like all of the Celtic lore out there. Like I'm reading this new book called Anam Cara, and I hope I'm saying that right because there's like a chika over the sea that I may be Irish, but I don't speak Gaelic. I'm American Irish, you know what I'm saying? And there was a story that was mentioned in the Celts, or in this book, that the Celts have as why these big stones are around like the fields in Ireland. And it has to do with this goddess and her like love. I guess she was supposed to marry some guy too. And she was like, I don't want to marry this guy. I want to marry this other guy. So she married this other guy. But because of that, the other gods were trying to find her and her new hubby for like eternity. And these rocks, according to the Celtic folklore, were places where her hubby was like, here's this giant slab of rock for you to sleep on or under, because I guess they could always run and try to hide from the gods, and they would hide among the people, but they could only stay in one spot like a day. Otherwise they would get caught. So they could only stay in a place for like a day or two, and then they'd have to leave. So all these big stone slabs are supposed to be, quote unquote, the remnants of their eternal love journey, just running across the lands of Ireland in order to be with one another. And that is what your story made me think of, because I'm like, I don't know, you're talking about it in Celtic terms, so I'm like, did you actually live a past life of like a Celtic like story, like lore, legend, fairy tale? I don't know. In my own sense, I loved your story. It made me very happy, and I hope it also made other people happy. And if anybody knows about the legend that I'm talking about, please feel free to let me know in the comments below if you're listening on the PsycKicks Extras YouTube channel, because I can't remember it, and I'm not going to like pause the podcast to go show it. But it was just, that is what your story made me think of, like the two gods running across Ireland in order to be together and leaving stone slabs. And it just makes me happy. And I guess anthropologically speaking, going back to Abby knowing everything or just anthropologists knowing everything about spirituality, it had to do with other like actual people doing things, but I still like the story and the folklore of it. So anyways, next story. This next story is titled Dead Loved Ones Visiting in Dreams, and it's by Amanda P. And I included this story specifically in this podcast because I want to talk about loved ones visiting people in dreams, because it is something that I've thought about making into a podcast as a topic itself, which if you want me to, I can try. Let me know in the comments below. But I'm not sure if it necessarily needs a whole podcast about it, maybe. But anyways, let's talk about Amanda's stories first. Amanda says, my mom passed unexpectedly about 10 years ago. We were very close. She was my best friend, and it was very difficult to lose her. I still mourn her and cry once in a while. First, the night she died, she came to me in a dream and showed me a picture of my niece and told me that she needed more love and attention than ever. Then, when we had her funeral, I was standing for several hours greeting loved ones and people who were there to pay their respects. I did sit down afterwards and drank some water. When it was over, my husband and I took our small son to the car and I stayed outside for a few minutes to smoke a stress cigarette. All of a sudden, I felt what I can only describe as a hug from my head to my toes. I felt like my mom was hugging me, letting me know she was still there and that she was proud of me for handling myself so well in that situation. I had a few more experiences and visitation dreams from her, and then one night I had a visitation dream from an old school friend who passed away when we were 17. He told me my mom had essentially passed through the door and was really happy she did. It felt like he was telling me that she had ascended on to heaven, and I haven't had any visitation dreams since. Instead, I have horrible dreams that she's abandoned me on purpose. Oh no. I'm pretty sure that those are just my subconscious thoughts because I know she didn't die on purpose. I'm so happy if she did move on because I would hate it if she was stuck here, but I sure do miss her and wish she would visit my dreams again. I'm not religious, but I do believe something happens to our energy when we pass, especially now. Any thoughts on this? Is she still around or did she really move on? Amanda P. All right, Amanda. Thank you for sharing your story. Let's break it down. My goodness. I'm not going to cry reading your story. Okay, so how do I want to break this down? Amanda, when you felt like your mom was hugging you after the funeral, when you were smoking your stress cigarette, let me tell you that is valid. That is true. I don't want you to think or anyone else to think that you need a medium to tell you that those things are valid or true, but you wrote your story in, so you asked, I'm going to tell you that's valid and true. And that is clairsentience, so feelings, physical emotions, and physical feelings. That's that other part of the clairsentience. Feeling like someone's hugging you or the sensation of someone holding your hand, etc. That is the feeling part of clairsentience. It's not just emotions, it's physical feeling. So physically feeling like someone hugged you, clairsentience. Now that knowing of the emotion and the feeling and the thought behind your mother giving you a hug as a soul, what did you say? You said specifically, it felt like my mom was hugging me, letting me know she was still there and she was proud of me for handling myself so well in that situation. That is your thought about it. That is claircognizance. That is knowing. That is clear knowing. That is you knowing that that is the purpose behind the sensation or clairsentience that she gave you. I love that. And it's beautiful and it makes me happy. Now, when it comes to dreams, we'll get to what I was talking about. So going back to, as a medium, what our job is, to bring peace and clarity, to tell you what you need to know, not necessarily what you want to know. And that is dictated by spirit. That's not dictated by us. Mediums don't know anything. We have to get our information from somewhere. So that soul, that spiritual being, that entity, whoever it is that the medium is talking to, in this case, it would be Amanda's mom, that soul is going to be giving us the information to give to you. So that also isn't dictated by them. As far as I understand it currently, right now, we can't just know everything. We can't know what we want. We can only know what we need to know. God, creator, source, whoever you want to call it, the angels, the higher beings that be, are what dictate what physical souls can tell us. That's why, like, a lot of people have been asking me to cover what's a really big case right now, the Mendez case. I don't know anything about it. Personally, true crime scares me. I don't like true crime things. But when it comes to things like that, I don't think it's ethical for mediums to talk about cases that are currently happening right now, because imagine, put yourself in the shoes of the friends or family of people that are involved in the case. How would you feel if some crazy lady on the internet or someone that identifies as a psychic medium on the internet is telling you what they think the souls of these people, whoever it was in this true crime incident, are feeling, thinking, etc.? I think that is very out of line and very audacious for people within this line of work to try and do, which is another reason that I don't do it. But it's also the fact of, we can't give you the answers. everyone has a soul contract and a path, and things are supposed to happen in their lives that we can't understand, we can't control, and we can't know everything about. So the information is limited as to how much, as a medium, the souls of true crime cases can tell us. This is the same thing when it comes to dreams. So, like we talked about that one case, like people have talked about declassified cases from the military where people talk about how they're trying to like make a military army of people with psychic abilities and stuff like that. The reason that wouldn't work is because psychic mediums, people in that field of whatever, we're not allowed to know everything. We can only know what we're allowed to know. And that's just not, you can't weaponize that. You can't make it into a military thing because we don't control that information. You don't just ask a question and get the answers to things. Otherwise, everyone would know everything. And then there wouldn't be a reason for physical existence, is what I should say. Because then you wouldn't learn anything. So when it comes to dreaming, going back to Amanda's thing, just because that's been an anecdote that I've been having a lot of questions and on comments on YouTube videos and things. Same thing with dreams. Spirits can only give you what you need, not what you want. So if you have experienced dreams where past loved ones have come to you and given you advice, sat and talked with you, etc., just like Amanda has her visitation dreams, and then suddenly, poof, they never happen again, or they don't happen as often, that is not the soul leaving you or abandoning you. That is a question that I get a lot. People ask me like, well, why hasn't my mom or my aunt or my grandma came to me in a dream? As far as I understand it, and if this perception and opinion changes, I will let you know. But as far as I understand, because souls give you what you need and not what you want, because of the powers that be, within the constraints of their own soul, when you stop getting dreams from these people or dream visitations, whatever you want to call it, it's because you no longer need them. Which is actually kind of beautiful if you think about it. God, creator, spirit, source, whatever you want to call them, has dictated that you have healed and been given all that you need, and that you might want these people to come back into your dreams, but you've sort of quote unquote graduated, healed enough in order to continue and move forward with your life in a positive and peaceful way. And that I want to move into with Amanda's thing of, I do think that your mom is over in heaven or spirit, whatever you want to call it. And that can be because she was choosing to stay around you for a long time in this world. But as far as I understand it, souls can be in heaven after they pass and still have dreams or be in your dreams, even though they're in heaven. Because again, we're no longer bound by physicality. So I feel like your mom could have been in heaven even while she was giving you those dreams. But the fact that your friend from when you were 17 came in order to give you that knowledge, that acceptance, that understanding of that your mom had found peace in heaven and gone through, quote, the door to the other side, is beautiful. And it might even just be like another layer of that. Your mom wasn't able to come tell you that, but the way spirit was able to tell you that was by sending your friend. Because there's so many times when I give readings to people that souls of past family members and friends that the person that made a reading with me, the lovely client on the other side of the screen, because I do Zoom readings, did not expect. And we don't also dictate who comes through during readings. You may ask for one person and a completely different person may come through, because again, it's not about what you want. It's about what you need. And I feel like what you needed was your friend to come through and know that your mother was in heaven or spirit. And for whatever reason, that was the way that it played out. And I think it's beautiful that hopefully you've healed enough in order for you to not need the visitations and dreams anymore. So anyways, I don't know. A lot of people just ask me like, well, don't you have dreams as a psychic medium like that? And the answer is no. I don't think I've really had many dreams, or like, if any, because I can't really remember them. Usually if I have dreams with past family members in it, it's not like I'm talking to them like how so many other people tell me about it. And it kind of makes me a little sad because they're like, well, you're a psychic medium. Isn't this just normal for you? And I'm like, no, that's not how it works for me. So anyways, I hope that I was able to answer your question, Amanda, and then other questions that I've just been floating about on the YouTube comments too, things like that. But those are the stories that I have for you today. If you are interested in sending in your own story, there is a link in the description below or in the show notes, depending on where you're listening to this at: Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube, whatever. And you can send in your own spooky, paranormal, or spiritual story of any sort of variety, because it's not all just like scary things. Like we had a fae past life, which makes me really happy. Like more of a true crime sort of thing. Honestly, if you ask me about like the first story with the scary man on the bus stop with Jenn, that's like true crimey to me, besides you using your energy to sort of like keep him away from you, Jenn. But anyways, if you're interested in a reading, I have availability. Every month or every day, it updates another day out in the month. And yeah, thank you all so much for listening to this Sunday's podcast. And until next time, I hope you all had a lovely Halloween, since that was last Thursday, because this is coming out on Sunday. And yeah, peace out, Brussels sprouts.